Alrighty, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to start off by stubbing out a few components that we're going to be needing in order to finish the implementation of the main game component. So the primary things that we're going to need is the game setup and game board components. So I'm going to go into components. I'm going to create a new folder called game. Well, I don't know. Do I want to put it in a new folder? Yeah, I think I do. So in components, I'll create a folder called game. And in this, I'll put in let's start off with the gameboard.js and gameboard.scss. Gameboard.js will import our gameboard SCSS module. And then what we're going to do is we are going to import React from React. We're going to preemptively import Lodash from Lodash because we'll probably need that. We're going to import star as a from .. because we're in a subdirectory, actions. And then I'm going to import container base from .. lib component. Then I'm going to export default class gameboard extends container base. And he will have a simple render method that will return out it's just going to return out a section of class name c-game-board. Gameboard section. All right, so you might be wondering, yes, this is a container. The reason this is a container and not just a normal dummy component is for the sake of time and passing in props. Generally, I would not have this be a container. Instead, I would pass the props directly from the main component, the game component, into it. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to make this a container. But like I said, I wouldn't normally want it to be one. But it'll work for our purposes. All right, so let's go ahead and stub out the next component. I'm going to put all of this on my clipboard by hitting Control-C. Then I'm going to create a game setup component and a game setup SCSS module. And then the game setup component, I'm going to paste down what we got before. I'm going to change the import of the SCSS file to game setup. Then I'm going to change the name to game setup. Then I'm going to change the class name to game setup. And then I'm going to change this dummy text to game setup. And that's it. So now we have the two components that we need in order to finish off our main game component. So let's jump down to our game component, and I'm just going to start from the top here. Let's start off with the constructor. That'll take in props, and we super those props, just like usual. Then I'm going to say this underscore send message equals message goes into this request a.game send message, this state game ID and message. That's a lot of code. Well, not really, but basically, we're just sending a message, sending a chat message. And remember, for the game set message, we have to pass in the game ID as well as the actual message itself. Then on component will mount, let's add in a reference to the game, store. Then after we, actually before we subscribe to app reconnect, I'm going to do this subscribe game op join game money. Comma op join game goes into this set state op join game. Then this subscribe game op send message money goes into op send message, goes into this set state op send message. Remember, get your curlies right here, because if you don't have curlies here, you will have a bad time, because that means something completely different. And those are the only two things. Actually, we also need to, of course, subscribe to the view of the game itself. So that's simply this subscribe game view money, comma, game goes into this set state game. And there we go. That's our component will mount. That's all we need. So now let's write our render method. So for the render method, let's nuke this return for now. And I'm going to extract op join game, op send message and game from our state. Then I'm going to say let body equals null and let show chat equals null. Then I'm going to do a variety of if statements. Or whoops, show chat equals, we want to default that to true. And the if statements will determine what state of the game are we in, what components do we want to show. Do we want to show a status message indicating a failure to join the game? Maybe it maybe didn't exist. Do we want to show an error that the game was already destroyed, and so on and so on. So I'm going to start off with if op join game.inProgress. For in the progress of joining a game, the body is going to equal section class name equals notice with a p tag of joining game ... np end section, and then show chat is false. I'm going to grab these 2 lines and put them on my clipboard, and then I'm going to say else if op join game.error, and I'm going to paste this down, and then for the class name I'll have notice and error, and then for the body itself it'll be cannot join game followed by op join game.error. Actually, I want to put that down there. Then I'm going to say else if game.step equals a step disposed. If the game's been disposed, let's go ahead and paste that down and change this to notice error, and then say game doesn't exist. Next up, I'm going to say else if game.step equals a step setup. And for this, I'm going to say body, and we haven't imported this yet, but we will in a moment, game setup, which is the game setup component that we stubbed out earlier. Then I'm going to say else body equals game board, which is the game board component that we stubbed out earlier, but we haven't imported yet. And so this will, of course, change what is rendered based off of a variety of different circumstances. So now let's go ahead and return out the body of the game. It's going to have a div of a class name equals c-game. And then we're going to pass in our body variable. Then I'm going to say if not, show chat or null, chat, followed by messages equals game.messages. Op send message equals op send message, and send message equals this send message. And there we go. So this is almost the entirety of this. We do need to import our game setup and our game board. So let's do that at the top. And our chat. So import game board from game/game-board. Import game setup from /game setup, and import chat from /chat. Now, this is going to be our game component, so let's scroll down it real fast. So if you want to take a look at the component we'll mount or the render, it's pretty straightforward. Let's check our game game store. I don't think I threw in any messages into the game. In fact, I don't think I rendered out messages at all. That is one thing I kind of forgot and just realized now. So after players, let's add another dummy array of messages, which will have name, Nelson, message, blah. And let's just do that so we can see that the messages are getting wired properly. But with that, I should be able to come over here and reload. And I see game setup followed by my messages. So it looks like everything's working. So we're in the game setup step right now. All right. But let's go ahead back into our game store and first style a step disposed. So if we're disposed, we want to show an error. In this case, it says game doesn't exist, and we don't see the chat. And of course, that's because if game step is disposed, then we display the error, and then we do not show the chat. Let's start off on that, and let's begin styling it. So let's jump into our game.scss. And in our game.scss, let's jump up to our, or let's jump down. Actually, let's do this up. Let's start off with the, in this file, let's start off with .c-game. We're going to give it a display of flex and a flex direction of column. Then I'm going to say .notice is going to have a font weight of bold, a flex grow of 1, a display of flex. If it's an error, then I want to say color is going to be color bad. So this should already start to be styled, and it is. Then I want to say P, I want to style the P tag and say align self center text align center flex grow 1. And this should center it vertically and horizontally. And as you see, it does. So now if we get an error, notice we will get this nice little centered thing. We won't see a player list, and we won't see a chat. All right, so if you want to take a last look at those styles, all the styles with the green on the side I've added in this video. And I think that pretty much wraps up our main game component. Now it's just a matter of implementing our game board and our game setup components. And we'll do the game setup component in the next video. And we'll see you guys then.